NBA trade rumors are running rampant as the deadline for players to be traded was just passed on Sunday. And with new teams being interested in some superstars, we're going to be diving in and looking at one specific team in the Denver Nuggets as they look to get an effective scorer added to their rotation. So we're going to be diving in and looking at who could they possibly add and possibly looking at some frameworks of some deals as well. All in this episode here over on Swish City. Without further ado, let's dive in and let's get into it. So, like I said in the introduction, we're going to be discussing and breaking down the Denver Nuggets, as they are a team in the Western Conference that was said to be at the top, but due to some lack of scoring and efficiency on the offensive side, they have been in like the middle of the pack of the Western Conference. And for a team that has Nikola Jokic, who is playing like he could win his third straight MVP, a player that is absolutely dominating in the NBA, I think that this could be the move. And if we want to look at this tweet from Dunk Central, I did not have access to The Athletic to get these articles, but from Tony Jones and from Sam Amick of The Athletic, we can see that Denver has discussed potential moves for Zach LaVine, Jordan Poole, Jonas Valanciunas, Jordan Clarkson, DeAndre Hunter, and Cam Johnson. A lot of names to be thrown around, but the Nuggets main target is Zach LaVine, as the Nuggets have either expressed interest or have had preliminary discussion of a trade on the following players. All LaVine, Poole, Clarkson, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Johnson, and Valanciunas. League sources say the focus on LaVine in recent discussion is significant. So the Nuggets want to go out and make that upgrade. There's also been news dropping today, this afternoon, from Ian Begley, which says that Brandon Ingram is also reportedly on the Nuggets' radar as well. So adding him as a name to this list is very wild. And if we want to look at the Nuggets roster, we can see with this Nuggets team, like I mentioned, that it is a tough roster to kind of look at. You got Jokic, you got Murray, who've been pretty playing good. You got Aaron Gordon after as well. But after that, Michael Porter Jr. has been solid, but could he be that third player for you in contention if you still want to compete? Zeke Naji, player that they signed to a long-term extension that they've been trying to move for a long time, is making their fifth most money and isn't getting any playing time. That's something to definitely be looking at as well. And the Nuggets have had some issues, maybe at the backup center spot, have had some issues efficiently scoring, and I think they could go out and make some waves and make some moves to acquire some of these players that were listed here. Zach LaVine, Jordan Poole, Jonas Valanciunas, Jordan Clarkson, DeAndre Hunter, even Cam Johnson, as I think they could be viable assets to help out this Nuggets team, still push on their quest with Nikola Jokic, push on with Jamal Murray, and still compete in this Western Conference for a couple years to come if they can make some more moves. Now, they did lose key players after they won their championship. They lost Bruce Brown, they lost Jeff Green, and then recently this offseason, they lost KCP, and they thought that players like Christian Braun and Julian Strawther would be able to step up and take the roles that those players played. But unfortunately for the Nuggets, those players just haven't lived up to that for their squad as effectively. So the Thunder, or not the Thunder, the Nuggets, excuse me, are looking to make those upgrades. So let's go dive in. Let's look at some rosters and kind of figure out how this could be possible. For the Nuggets, it's all realistically what do they want to significantly add. When you kind of look at these players, there's a different range of them from what I can kind of see. And the Nuggets also do have some limitations. First, the Nuggets are in the first apron, which means the Nuggets can only take back more money than they send out. They cannot take less money than they send out. So if they were to make a trade for one of these players, they would have to send out more money than they are giving up. Two, for the Nuggets. From looking at these names, you can see it's obviously a wide range. You look at Zach LaVine, a player that's been regarded as non-tradable but is still having a fantastic offensive season, could be a third star on a championship team if that team is willing to take on his $40 million contract. You look at other players, though, on this list, like Jonas Valanciunas and Jordan Poole, they similarly are on a Wizards squad where Valanciunas would come be your backup center behind Jokic. Poole could be a nice consistent shot creator, but maybe off the bench. Jordan Clarkson, I could also see maybe being a bench piece or maybe a last wing, last rotational piece in your starting lineup, your fourth or fifth best player. DeAndre Hunter, Cam Johnson, I see those guys kind of being, top tier like role players, third, fourth options for you on most nights. But it's kind of weird that you have, two legitimate stars that this team is chasing and Zach LaVine and Brandon Ingram to reports, but they're also looking at potential other guys that could just help out on the edges. So realistically, I think the Nuggets just want to make a move for sure. they're going to try to do something at least to bolster this roster to give them contention. And regardless if it's a big splash move like Levine or Ingram, which I think they would rather get, then I think that's what they're going to pursue. But if they cannot get a big splash move like that, or if it's going to take too much capital, then they might go to another player or switch their lanes to a player like Jordan Clarkson, maybe a player like Jonas Valanciunas and Jordan Poole, or a player like DeAndre Hunter or Cam Johnson. But don't sleep on Cam Johnson because that market is not going to die down as he is one of the most coveted wings out on this market. But if we want to look at some teams here and look at the potential giveaway, we all know that Michael Porter Jr. would have to be likely involved in any major deals as Porter is, making a decent amount of money. He's a pretty solid shooter for this team. If we want to look at his contract, he's making around $30 million. So if we want to look at some other teams around this league, we could first look at the Chicago Bulls. They obviously would be interested in Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine's making around $43 million. So the Bulls and the Nuggets would have to do multiple people in the trade. But since the Nuggets are not in the second apron and neither are the Bulls, they can obviously aggregate salaries, which makes it a little bit easier than some of these second apron teams. So for a team like the Bulls to move off of a player in Zach LaVine, they might have to do a trade with Michael Porter Jr., might have to take on Zeke Naji's contract, and then the Bulls would take Zach LaVine back. If we want to look at a team like the Atlanta Hawks, that's also mentioned as well, they have a possibility of truing a Michael Porter deal for a deal in a DeAndre Hunter, obviously, but they would have to take some more salary back. So I saw this recommended by Trevor Lane on the Basketball Bulletin. If you don't follow him, go check him out. But he said possibly getting Larry Nance Jr. as well. And I thought that was a pretty solid move. Adding a player like Larry Nance Jr., who's a switchable big for this Nuggets team off the bench, could do wonders. Playing alongside Aaron Gordon, playing alongside Nikola Jokic, he can stretch the floor as well with this Nuggets team. Is a pretty solid rim protector and paint defender. And then adding a player in DeAndre Hunter on the wing could do, some bigger moves for the future. The only question I have with that is why would the Hawks be interested, in a player in Michael Porter Jr. when they already have Zachary Arshea and Jalen Johnson? Do they feel a player like Michael Porter Jr. could be easily moved after this offseason or potentially in the future because they have him locked up for multiple years? That could be a possibility as well. I don't really necessarily know. And then lastly, when looking at the Washington Wizards here, we can see obviously they're one of the latter destinations, I think, in my opinion. But a player like Jordan Poole, a player like Jonas Valanciunas could be welcomed into this organization for Michael Porter Jr., you'd probably have to part with Zeke Naji as well, and it'd have to be, a 3-4 player trade. But the one trade proposal that I saw from Jake Weinbach from Jake Weinbach NBA over on Twitter, here's an NBA analyst insider. He was talking about a trade idea between the Nuggets and the Bulls, and this is what he came up with. Denver acquires Zach LaVine and Torrey Craig, while Chicago receives Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, and Jalen Pickett. The Nuggets add a third star and reunite with a valued role player, while the Bulls retool with younger assets and save money for the long term. And I think that this deal would work best for both teams. I think Denver, obviously, in this transaction here, obviously gets the better player in Zach LaVine, but they are taking on a contract that is $43 million and is going to continue to ascend. So the Nuggets put themselves in a little bit of a restriction, but in the quest for chasing a championship and pursuing your best team and best options available with Nikola Jokic, I think it is the right move. Adding a player in Torrey Craig also could be a solid 3-and-D wing on the edges there, and he could be a viable piece to kind of help out scoring and playing some solid defense. Plug and play him in at the 3 or at the 4. And then when you look at for the Bulls side of things, if we want to look back at the trade, they obviously get Michael Porter Jr., a solid wing that they can run at the 3 or the 4, depending what they want to do with Patrick Williams. If they want to start Matas Buzelis, they want to run, they can bring in Zeke Naji, a player who hasn't played much with the Nuggets, but could use a new home, a new destination to kind of show his potential with the Bulls, and Jalen Pickett, a young player off the bench as well that could be a viable piece for their rebuild. Obviously, taking a little bit of a flyer on Pickett there is a solid defensive piece, and taking a little bit of a flyer on Zeke Naji. Ultimately, it depends if they would like to take Michael Porter Jr. They might not even want to take Michael Porter Jr., so a third team might have to get involved. When looking at a trade as well for the Pelicans, I think a swap for Porter Jr. for Ingram would fit. I didn't have time to include the image of their salary cap. I didn't have enough space, but I wanted to talk about that as well. Pelicans with Brandon Ingram here. Excuse me, I don't know why I said Blake Griffin. Brandon Ingram. He is a player that I think they could do a swap for if the Pelicans obviously still want to stay at the bottom. If the Pelicans are looking for a rebuild, bringing in a player like Michael Porter Jr. again could be another tradable, flexible contract in the future with multiple years attached to him if he still is producing as a solid shooter. And on a Pelicans team, might be looking like one of the better players with all their injuries. I could see a move being that made. But like I said, it all depends on what Denver realistically wants. Do they want to go out there? Do they want to go get a superstar like Brandon Ingram, Zach LaVine? Will they go out and get it with at all costs, giving a player like Michael Porter Jr. up? Or would they rather hold a player like Michael Porter Jr. and use some contracts around the edges like Zeke Naji, Jalen Pickett, and some of those other guys to potentially get some minor upgrades, or potentially going for an upgrade at filling two holes in Atlanta with DeAndre Hunter and Larry Nance Jr. Let me know what your guys' thoughts down below. Let me know what you ultimately think in the comment section. Do you think the Nuggets are going to go out for a trade? I think they are going to make a move regardless before the trade deadline. If it's a big splash, I'd be very excited as I think they need it. But if not, if they do play a trade like DeAndre Hunter and Larry Nance Jr., I think that one is a solid one as well. Some of the other ones a little bit confuse me, like the Wizards, but ultimately we'll have to wait and see what the Nuggets do this season, getting ready for the trade deadline. Like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in this episode. You guys have been absolutely fantastic and supporting the revitalization of it. So it's been really, really great seeing your support in the comments. So if you do enjoy the content, hit the like button, make sure to share the video. We're going to be putting out as much NBA content as we can over the year on this channel, trying to do a video every day, maybe if not every day, every other day, but I got you guys. Like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.